Ray Davis and Lee Phillips, two soldiers who lived 22 miles from each other in the Atlanta, Georgia area, participated in a daring rescue operation over 7,000 miles from their homes during the Korean War. During this time, the United States was exploring its role as leader of the United Nations. This operation was later called the Battle of Chosin Reservoir, and the soldiers, the chosen few, their mission was to rescue Fox Company, a group of Marines stranded in the snow and ice, surrounded and greatly outnumbered by hostile Chinese forces. Casualties were heavily exchanged. As a result of this encounter with the Chinese forces, not only was Fox Company rescued, but the supply route for the whole 1st Marine Division was re-established. Because of their gallant actions, Ray Davis and Lee Phillips would emerge as unforgotten Korean War heroes. Ray Davis was born on January 13, 1915 in Fitzgerald, Georgia. 8 years later, he and his family moved to Atlanta. After graduating high school, he enrolled in the Georgia Institute of Technology as an Army ROTC cadet. While attending the Army ROTC, an instructor informed Davis that the Marine Corps had one active duty commission available. Davis simply said, "Into the Corps for me," and he was awarded that commission.
One of the great Marines of all time, Chesty Puller, was my company commander in basic school. And so I went to him and said, that time, Major Puller, so I wanted to change to something more Marine-like.
Davis wanted to use his leadership skills to join in the conflict of World War II, but he did not have the rank required for such a position. Major Puller, who was Davis's instructor and knew of Davis's leadership skills, had the authority to put Davis in command of a unit which would lead U.S. troops in battle for the Pacific island of Peleliu. This daring decision was Davis's first taste of United States Marine Corps leadership. For the contributions Davis made to one of the bloodiest encounters in American history, he was awarded the Navy Cross. He was also awarded the Purple Heart for sustaining injuries by a bullet wound. Approximately 6 years after World War II, tensions began to rise in Korea when soldiers from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, also known as North Korea, crossed the 38th parallel and into the territory of the Republic of Korea, also known as South Korea. This encounter was the first military action of the Korean War. In July of 1950, a United Nations force under the United States leadership joined the South Korean army in its war with North Korea. The United States was exploring their role as leaders of the United Nations. Casualties were mounting fast, and the United States government strived to work in armistice with North Korea. However, all attempts were rejected, and the United States had no other option but to fully engage in the conflict. The 1st Marine Division of the United States was ordered to march from their command post in New Germany to the Yalu River and eliminate any communist forces along the way. Fox Company, a member of the 1st Marine Division, comprised of 246 men, was ordered to protect the Toktung Pass. The Toktung Pass was an important supply route for all the troops in Korea. If not protected, several other regiments would have been isolated from supplies and reinforcements. On November 29, 1950, while protecting the Toktung Pass, Fox Company was surrounded by 150,000 Chinese forces moving inward. With no plan to escape, they were stranded. The weather conditions could not have been worse. Temperatures plummeted to 30 degrees below zero. Facing blizzard conditions, Fox Company was left with no other choice but to engage the enemies and wait for reinforcements. 5-star General Douglas MacArthur received information on this issue and started plans for a rescue mission. He called on the Marine Corps, who appointed Davis, then a lieutenant colonel, to plan and lead this daring mission to save Fox Company. Davis and his troops started on the 8-mile journey to rescue Fox Company. One of the soldiers on their mission was Marine Corps Corporal Lee Phillips. Born on February 3, 1930, Phillips was raised in Stockbridge, Georgia, just 22 miles from where Davis lived. Despite spending their childhood in such close geographic proximity, the two men would never encounter each other. Slowly proceeding through the snow, Davis's soldiers finally made it to Fox Company's location. Once they arrived, the Chinese opened fire on Davis's troops. Davis had no other choice but to push through hostile forces and trek up the frozen mountain. After countless ambushes and bayonet charges, tragedy struck. During a bayonet charge, Phillips was impaled through the chest by a Chinese bayonet. After proceeding up the treacherous mountain, the worst snowstorm to hit Korea in 100 years was battering down on U.S. troops. As Davis stated in his autobiography, "In the wind on our mountaintop, it could have been negative 75-degree wind chill. We would freeze to death if we did not move. It was that numbing cold." Surrounded by Chinese forces on an icy mountain with little supplies, Ray Davis's troops were able to hold off approaching hostile forces. These encounters with the Chinese soldiers would later be known as the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. As the forces continued to exchange casualties, Davis was shot 3 times, once in the helmet. 2 other rounds pierced his clothing, but not his skin. Davis got up and continued to daringly lead his soldiers. Finally, Davis's men reached Hungnam, a coastal village in North Korea, where Fox Company was successfully evacuated. Ray Davis's intense efforts in the Battle of Chosin Reservoir earned him the Medal of Honor for leading his men no matter what the cost. Even though Corporal Lee Phillips had 2 remaining comrades, he was able to push back Chinese forces with only hand grenades and a .45 caliber pistol 2 days before the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. These actions earned him the Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor is one of the most prestigious awards for valor in American history, and it has only been awarded to 3,496 people in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. 17 of them came from the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. These awards, plus the 73 Navy Crosses and 23 Distinguished Service Medals, made the Battle of Chosin Reservoir one of the most decorated battles in American history. Without the gallant actions of the soldiers risking their lives above and beyond the call of duty, the Chinese would have eliminated the entire 1st Marine Division. The Battle of Chosin Reservoir was an extremely important turning point in the Korean War, because new recruit soldiers were able to gain experience in battles. Some of these soldiers would later fight in the Vietnam War. This encounter confirmed that the Chinese forces were supporting North Korea in the war. Also, the Battle of Chosin Reservoir allowed the Chosin Reservoir to be returned to Korean citizens. Of the 15,000 U.S. soldiers that were stationed at the Chosin Reservoir, 3,000 of them were killed and 8,000 were wounded. However, due to their gallant actions, 98,000 Korean civilians were rescued. Due to the heavy exchange of casualties, the Battle of Chosin Reservoir became one of the bloodiest battles during the Korean War. Corporal Lee Phillips made the ultimate sacrifice when he lost his life in a bayonet charge. The Medal of Honor and Purple Heart were presented to his family on March 19, 1954. Ray Davis went on to become a 4-star general and led several successful missions in the Vietnam War. In May of 1969, Davis was put in charge of the education of new recruits in Quantico, Virginia. In 1987, Davis was appointed by President Ronald Reagan to help lead the Korean War Memorial Project. The memorial's purpose was to keep the Korean War in the mind of Americans and to remember the many people who fought to prevent communism to spread globally. The Korean War is considered by most people to be the forgotten war because it was sandwiched between patriotic World War II and the extremely televised Vietnam War. And also, many civilians didn't agree with our country getting involved with a conflict so far away. After 8 years of hard work, the efforts of Davis and the Korean War Veterans Memorial Advisory Board paid off. The Korean War Memorial was completed in 1995 in Washington, D.C. It is a national monument to honor all the troops who served with valor during the Korean War. Ray Davis died of a heart attack on September 3, 2003, after a long life of service for his country. The bravery of Ray Davis and Lee Phillips is not only recognized in Washington, D.C., but is also remembered locally at the Heritage Park Veterans Museum and the Wall of Honor in McDonough, Georgia. Exploring the stories of local veterans emphasizes how small-town heroes can impact the world.